Hey, what's going on, everyone? Astrologer Eric Rosen here, and welcome to Celestial Conversations from Chaos to Clarity. This is the weekly astrology horoscope where I take a look at the major transits of the astrology ahead and especially go into the interpretation side of it. I tend to not get too hung up in the technical terminology. That way I can give it in more layman's terms to help people out, kind of guide them through their week. Of course, this is a collective horoscope for everyone. We're all navigating this together. And if you're wanting something more specific to your life, especially if you're feeling stuck in chaos, you've got some difficulties going on, struggling with some emotion, some confusion, best to book a one-on-one astrology reading with me, because that's where I can really get in and give you the specific astrological guidance on how this collective transit, real-time astrology is impacting you, your natal chart, even going into some deeper subconscious layers that I like to look at too in readings called solar arc progressions. I like to get deep and really see the possibilities for people, even for months ahead, and I can actually manifest a better life. Because this astrology, the way that it is right now, I mean, I've been saying there are no roads left, but I think now we're in the space with Uranus and Gemini, and we're starting to get used to this energy. We're actually starting to build these futuristic roads on this celestial highway of what it is that we can create in our life. But as I'm going to talk about this week, it can feel a little bit hesitant to doing those things, and maybe even feeling low in energy if we're not willing to act. So, and of course, if you do want to be there for the live of where I do my special, where I talk about Uranus and Gemini and the look ahead with that, that's going to be tomorrow night, 6 p.m. Central Time. So if you're interested in that, drop a comment, drop an emoji, send me a message, especially if you're on Facebook. And if you're on YouTube, just check out that description section. What else? I feel like I'm missing something, but that's all I'm going to say for now. We'll see if it comes through later. So this is for the week ahead of July 16th through July 23rd. I do this from Wednesday until basically the following Tuesday/Wednesday of the following week. And I do this so that there can be chaos, there can be calamity, there can be uncertainty, especially when you look out in the world, the systems collapsing, but also the personal systems that we're connected to of expecting reality to go a certain way that we're so used to and very cookie cutter. So it's almost like the chaos comes from the resistance to the change. And so this is to update on like where we can innovate, what we can do differently to transcend the chaos. So the big news this week, it's Mercury retrograde in Leo, but it's also Mars is going to meet with that South Node in Virgo. So this is a lot dealing with communication. We're going to see a Mars-Venus square. So we're going to see that Mars and that South Node squaring over to Venus that's in Gemini. That Sun in Cancer that we're finishing up Cancer season this weekend. That's going to sextile over to Uranus. Venus is going to sextile Mercury retrograde right as it goes retrograde. So major, crazy, interesting communication stuff this week happening. That's going to be the big thing. There might be a lot of people changing their minds, people maybe losing their minds for a moment. And we're going to have that Sun in Cancer also square over to Chiron in Aries. And so I will just put this on the top end before I even break down the transits, just for people to see like what's the bigger picture here. We are going through a transition into a new world. It can be turbulent. Depending on what level of frame of mind that you're looking at it, it can feel very much like a tower moment. The tower card in the tarot deck, like as in it's gotten too big for its britches, it's got to come down, it's a transformation waiting to happen, but it can feel very destructive. And the reason that I mention it in that way, depending on the perspective, is because the two signs that deal with mental outlook, Gemini and Virgo, and the planet that deals with outlook is Mercury. So it's going retrograde in Leo. Its home sign's got Uranus in Gemini. Its other home sign in Virgo's got this Mars South Node that's meeting. It brings up questions of like, what is real, especially with that Mars that rules Aries, and we've got Saturn retrograde, we've got Neptune retrograde on top of each other, making aspects Pluto retrograde up in Aquarius, and then making aspects to Uranus. And so it's almost like the facts are evolving. And that can seem weird to say, right? The facts are just facts, but it's like the paint's melting off the walls in terms of like the reality that was fed to us. It's hard to even like know what the fuck is even factual and real anymore. It's like you look out into the world. We could use the Epstein files, for example. It's like they're saying they were going to disclose them, and now they're saying they no existe. And so it's like, what is real? It's just a prime example. It's not even meant to get political. It's a prime example of the astrology of like challenges of identifying like what's even real. And so we have to look at this very much in our own personal lives. It's like, has the way that we've been looking at things, the programs, the systems that we've been running, is that actually leading us to victory? Is that actually leading us to the win? Are we actually getting what we want? Or is it bringing up that common theme that Mars in the South Node in Virgo tends to bring up of losing, not getting the victory, feeling weak, feeling disempowered, lacking vitality, especially in Virgo, right? This can bring up health issues for sure. It can bring up headaches. It can bring up inflammation in different parts of the body, just like muscle soreness. And it's really a reminder to not like push routines and exercise and just activities in general, especially like if it's coming from the ego. It's like trying to push, it's trying to force a win, especially in an old way that is very familiar, that there's a certain, oh, let me just try it this way. I'll do it like this and see if it'll work, when a lot of this is saying that we have to rise up to a much higher perspective that can even feel very outside the box and can even feel a little crazy. And I would say a lot of that is going, okay, if the fundamentals of how we think things work, just apply the science of how you like use logic and reasoning and everything else, and go, well, maybe that's not the way. Maybe it is Uranus and Gemini going, you know what, fuck it, let's like find out and try a different outlook, try a different behavior, right? It brings up this need really much so to like actually have conversations with people that get it, that understand and are kind of familiar with like the higher perspective. This brings up relatability of being able to speak to people and be like, hey, you know, what's up? Like, how are you experiencing things? How are you seeing things? And so this can bring up a lot of challenges this week around communication, people not fully understanding where we're coming from. It can bring up the difficulty of trying to communicate and like not being able to get it perfect and just kind of having to be messy with it. And that's okay, because the truth is that we're going through this process where the outer reality has been collapsing, and now our personal reality, that it's like, oh shit, wait, our personal reality is somehow connected to that collective personality. That's collapsing, and we can't really rebuild it and try to make things better, more efficient. It's like trying to build a miniature version of our life with like popsicle sticks and our plans and our goals. And it's like Saturn's over there like chuckling like a, you know, kind of maniacal laugh over there in Aries, going like, I've already told you what to do. I've already told you where the homework is at, what the self-mastery is. That with it being on Neptune, this brings up very much this piece of kind of going, you know, in order to satisfy the direction that we want to go in the outer reality, we have to be okay with transmuting whatever it is that's going on internally to make the shifts on the outside. Because what's the major downfall of not paying attention to what's really going on within us, but also simultaneously not paying attention to where the trends are going collectively? You could use examples of the tech part, the AI part. That's where all the energy is going in terms of industries. It's like it's going towards AI, the money's going into AI. And so it's like looking at this thing about we can't keep pushing in a direction to try to make something more efficient that's already falling apart. It's like putting oil into the vehicle that barely runs, and it's like, well, I'm just putting oil into it. It's only a few bucks for topping off the oil, but it's like it barely runs. Maybe it's time for a replacement. It's time for an upgrade. And so this is not about like pushing to make it better. This is not about struggling through that chaos and then getting confused and saying, well, why isn't it working? And it's like, because we're moving away from that. The way that we're used to feeling good, the way that we're used to working, the way that we're used to making money, the way that we're used to showing up to our families, the way that we're used to dealing with our health, the way that we're used to looking at ourselves in the mirror, our routines, it's all changing all across the board. Every identification is in a struggle-licious endeavor of like trying to fix it, and it cannot be fixed. And so it's just really weird territory where we haven't like reached the other side, and we really won't until April 2026. And so it's being okay with finding a sense of confidence and bravery from a more spiritual side of ourselves that we've never really tapped into, kind of that superhero that knows how to show up for these tougher times and be our own superhero in our life, and not try to fix it, but have to make hard decisions with things and to actually trust our intuitive side more. And that's what helps us get over the confusion of what's not working. So if we push, we're struggling, feeling confused, this actually creates a delay in the character development that Saturn, Neptune are asking for, and even that Mars and South Node in Virgo that's asking us to shed those old antiquated identities that were connected to the matrix. And so it's doing that rather than working on the outside. And so if you're falling into that category, the pushing, the struggle, the confusion, and you're like, it's not working, and maybe you're someone, you're just like consuming more and more information, because with all the communication, mental aspects in the astrology, it can be like, well, let me just go think about it some more, or let me go try this thing, but it's like one of the same, or let me go like learn about this thing, or let me go figure this thing out without actually like engaging like in real time conversation, like with people that actually have a higher perspective. And so it's actually being willing to listen to people that are guides, that are mentors, like groups of people that are standing on a higher elevation vibrationally of a place that you want to go. And so there's like a humbling element to it. So if you're feeling that struggle, that chaos, that pushing, maybe find someone that knows how to spot those blind spots. And so, if you feel that calling, reach out to someone. If you vibe with me, reach out to me, because that's what I help people do. I get them unstuck in that way. The other things too, it's like, it's just a reminder too that when we're going through a space where it feels like, it can feel like hitting a wall. Saturn retrograde's infamous for that. Now, it's not a wall that we can't get over. It's a block, it's a blockade. We have to know how to slow down and move past it, because ultimately it's not that we can't move forward with Saturn retrograde. It just teaches us to slow down. It teaches us how to look at things like in a different perspective, especially with all this Mercury-based astrology this week, and that there are ways to move forward, but the first inclination might be to go back into an old behavior that's fear-based. So it's a week to like not go backwards, like maintain the frequency of, I don't like using this word a lot, but it is a frequency of enlightenment. It's having to rise to kind of this like, I don't know how it's going to work out, but somehow it's going to. And so it's needing that positive can-do attitude of feeling like the person that maybe knows something that others like don't, but then you have to like play the hunch out and actually still follow the intuition, follow the facts, doing things that we're already sort of familiar with. Like, it's like if you're initiating new things during this time, it's like looking at it like it's probably something that you already know about, because if you really break this down, the only planets that we can really rely on for true guidance in terms of like a expansion, move forward, evolve, peace, it's that Uranus and Gemini, and it's that Jupiter and Cancer. And of course, the sun helps us move forward as well. That's starting this week in Cancer. But when you have Mars on the South Node in Virgo, it's like we cannot fully trust our minds, nor can we with Mercury retrograde in Leo. Like, it could actually lead to drama. It could lead to things that we're not just seeing clearly. Like, we're just not able to identify the facts, and it could almost be like an egoic, I want it to be this way, even though it's already revealed itself that it's not. That Saturn's retrograde, that Neptune's retrograde, Pluto's retrograde. So, of course, we have Venus in Gemini. So it's like, it's a lot about initiating new things. Jupiter in Cancer, it's like we got to initiate through our feeling, through our intuition, but it's that ruler of Sagittarius. And so it's about expanding into areas that we already know that we haven't explored. It's not like a brand new thing. Like, in some level, it's already entered into the space of our personal lives, right? There's already some level of familiarity with it, and even the mental familiarity. Uranus in Gemini, that Venus in Gemini, we need to be okay with, when it comes to change, with that Venus that's in Gemini squaring over to that Mars South Node in Virgo, like stable, consistent change, not like jerking and impulsive and just trying to do it from a place of fear or trying to win. This is about using all this astrology for new levels of contemplation, that Uranus and Gemini, relaxing with that Jupiter in Cancer, to kind of like ask the question, that Gemini question, like, where do we go next? Like, not just the I, but like we, like, where are we as the collective going next? What's the motivation within me to be a part of that change, where things are going next? And so that's a very Uranus and Gemini way of like thinking outside the box and asking questions about, where are we going next? Where am I going next? How does this all fit together? Not these questions of, how do I just survive and figure out this broke ass thing that's already not working in my life, that all of this Mercury based astrology is revealing right now. And so with that Mercury that's retrograde this week in Leo, I think we can find some recharge in our passion and our love for life in general, but it's going to be motivated upon not doing the same shit over and over and over again. And also, too, not fooling ourselves and tricking ourselves like Mercury-based astrology can do. That's really heavy this week. And it's not heavy, it's more like, it is the trickster. It's just like taking us into a direction of going, well, because I'm thinking about my life or thinking about change, or I'm gathering more information, like I'm doing good. And so we have to kind of like hard nose, like fact check ourselves and be like, are we actually showing up in, I would say this week, a blend of our masculine and feminine energies, that like we're actually creating like real change, like our behaviors are actually changing, we're actually creating a new outlook on life, like we're having conversations with people that we need to have. And so, we have to look at this as like, it's not about just like showing up and doing the same stuff. Like, we have to like show up, and we have to put a newer level of effort that we're not used to doing. With all the Mars South Node activity in Virgo, and it being ruled by Mercury going retrograde, and also that Mars on the South Node that is Aries, and that Saturn Neptune that's retrograde, it's like we can burn ourselves out and get a dead battery pretty quick and be pretty lethargic, especially if we're operating a lot from the more traditional aspects of the thinking mind. I've been finding that it's much better to come more from the solar plexus, like Virgo rules the stomach, and so it's a solar plexus area. And so that assertion that's missing, that vitality that Mars brings, we almost have to drop out of like more of the traditional like mental thinking basis and just kind of have that sense of confidence within ourselves without any prior thought. It is just kind of this knowing of like, I don't need to go and figure out a million problems or freak out or be worried and process those digestive fluctuations that can even happen too in Virgo with that Mars and South node. It's more just like a knowing. It's a moving forward energy that comes from trusting the intuition. So, the changes, they've got to make sense through this time too. Like, it can't be just this like leap of, I'm going to go start this brand new thing and I know nothing about it. I have no knowledge base. I have no prior thought. And it's like getting impatient for the transition that we're going through and like jumping out of the boat. And it's like, it's not safe. And so the safety net comes from this humble honoring of being, okay, well, there's all these planets like retrograde. And so it's playing back a rhythm of like what in a lot of ways has already been created, but it doesn't mean that we can't find our center and actually make the best of things and move forward and still be okay with taking time to rest and contemplation, that North Node of Pisces, that Jupiter in Cancer, and wrapping up Cancer season. And so I don't think that it needs to be some giant push to make up for, lost time or being like, well, the world's changing fast. But it's like, yes, it is. But Pluto is retrograde in Aquarius, and that Saturn, Neptune that are retrograde in Aries, they know they're going back to Pisces, to the old, world reality of things for one last time. And Uranus is just dipping its toes kind of in the new atmosphere in Gemini because it's only going to be there until September. And so it's going to be retrograding before long. So it's looking at it like we don't need to freak out and plug into the collective negative frequency systems of fear that get pumped out there, because best believe it, with this astrology, it is a reminder that there are systems that want to control the mind and put us into looping thoughts. It's like the freaking bicycle that we're just like pedaling harder and harder and harder, but it's pedaling just reoccurring thoughts, contemplating falsities of life that don't even matter. And that can be hard to even see because it brings up the illusion with Mars and that South Node of Virgo, where it's like, it's not even like the thing that even like matters. And that's a tough sell to a lot of people, because the truth is that Uranus teaches us that like we're a collective, but that in order to like rebel, you have to like rise above the collective status quo frequency and actually like look into this space of a higher horizon of like what can be. And so much of this astrology is just like rooted in like, the stuff that's like already happened, and trying to clean things up and overly clean it and purify it and make it work as if there's going to be some like victory in that. And so to take a step back actually and find some rest, like recalibrate our energy, like get back to our intuitive knowing and trusting that guidance system of how to weave forward in a way that's going to look very unique to 99% of the people in the world, and maybe even a little bit crazy, a little bit inventive even, because it's highly metaphysical in nature, and it's very much like it's not going to look like the smart play. Like, that's just the reality of it. And Uranus teaches us in Gemini, like, hey, like, yeah, it's still got to make sense, like, don't go chasing waterfalls, right? Like, as like some form of like an escape from the stress of things. But it's a tough sell, this whole like, hey, like, maybe the 99 problems that you're managing, actually, like, that's not your circus anymore. Like, you don't, those monkeys don't want to hang out with you. You don't want to really hang out with them. It's just, you think that you have to. You think that you got to be responsible for all these stressors, and this could bring up everything from the jobs that people work in that they don't like, to their exercise routine that they're just doing to chase the dangling carrot to feel a certain way, but they don't really like it. The daily routine that's completely flipped, and maybe just like needs to follow more of an intuitive flow that actually feels more synchronistic. So, and the hard part about all of it too, it's like Mars and South Node in Virgo teaches us that thoughts that really aren't true to us, like, they make us weak. Like, we lose our vitality. It's our own kryptonite. I'll reference Superman because that movie just came out, but it's like our own kryptonite is our own thoughts that are fear-based, worry-based, and that take us down. They take us down to a place we don't need to go, and then it can be weird because then that's a familiar territory, and then we're trying to fight our way out of a paper bag again, and we don't need to do that. We've only got so many, it's like a payload of a like an airplane or a jet fighter. It's like you can only take so much on. You only got so many missiles. Like, aim them at a higher horizon that builds upon the things that you're already doing, and be humble enough to like go in that positive direction. And it may not even seem positive at first, but it's trusting it and going with it. It's like, try the actual new tweaks and behaviors that are like really new and different. Like, you haven't actually done it that way before. I do like that we are going to see that sun come into Leo this week too. And so, at least with the drained energy that can feel like in our action orientation and like our persistence and like our moving forward and our resolve for things to stay committed, at least we can be led by what is the passion, what is the joyful nature, the creative nature that makes life feel like it's a stage worth dancing on and performing on. But it's not about performing, in the way to just like feel better temporarily. It's about actually using this Leo season that's coming up, that starts this week, to actually pour that passion, that aliveness, that sun's vitalistic nature, because the sun's really at home in Leo, like that's its spot, the peak of the summer. And it's like, all right, like, let's use the energy of creation and passion and actually put it into, when you blow up the rest of the astrology, like places that are evolving forward. But again, it's not all on the outside. Like, there's still an extremely spiritual nature to this. There's still a highly emotional, volatile side to this that's very important, that we're meant to evolve into too, with all of this, where it's like, process the emotions, process the grief. The emotions will lead us back to a recovery of our true identity faster than trying to piece it back together like a puzzle will, because the mind and the trickster energy that's going on right now, it doesn't actually really have the full identification of what needs to stay and go in terms of our evolving nature of who we are, of our identity. And some people might be like, I know who I am, but it's like, there's a new level, there's a new spiritual level to reach to during this time. So it's just not about forcing it and going too hard into that. I think this week too, with all of it, we got to be careful with like over studying like too much detail. It's another iteration of saying, it's like, be careful about consuming the information. It's like food. It's like, do you really need to eat that much food? Or do you need to just put enough in the tank that feels good to get your stuff done, to get your work done? Because there can be so many different like pieces that come up where it's like the wanting to retreat from the daily duties, like it's like, I'm not feeling good, therefore I'm just gonna like clock out early. And it's really not about not doing anything and laying out completely like I'm sick, I've got to retreat from my duties. It's looking at this piece of going like, okay, there's a satisfactory element at a soul level to rise into the occasion of doing more than the daily duty and doing the things that are actually fulfilling, enjoyable to the soul, because it understands the terrain that we're navigating and moving forward. It's very intuitive and taking us to this higher place of what it is that we can do. And then the daily duties just can kind of fall into place more. And so it's actually not creating stress in the void that we can fall in, where like it can feel like there's something missing. So we have to we can't just do the basics. Like there has to be actual change and fulfilling elements that we're doing. Otherwise, like it makes it worse. It makes it more stressful. It makes it more harder. It brings up the suffering that South Node Mars and Virgo very much brings up. The suffering of being a human, the suffering of mundane reality. But that North Node is saying like, hey, we're moving in this spiritual direction, and that North Node that's in Pisces, Neptune's the ruler, it's in Aries, it's on Saturn. It's saying your spiritual identity is trying to wake up, but it had to hit the snooze button for the retrogrades. And so it's like, be patient about becoming the new spiritual you and that superhero. But in the meantime, you're just going to have to go through the digestive discomfort of fucking releasing out and processing the old you that's not you anymore. Like for me earlier, it was like, I was meditating and it was like the South Node Mars Virgo for me brought up like that busyness that Virgo is, like that overly busy, like activity, go here, blast off there, doing all these activities. But it was bringing up the me that was that 9 years ago, because why? The nodes were flipped. And so this is a good time to like look at whatever it was that you were being asked to move into and try to get the victory of being a version of yourself that was more committed to your work, and to try to like actually build systems and routines. And where that South Node was in Pisces and actually saying, oh, just escape, just like run away from it all, just put the covers over your head. It's like flip now. So it's like, it's not about the systems, it's not about the work, it's not about staying busy and doubling down on trying to like overdo it and control everything and just try to hold it all together. It's the flip now, that it's not actually an escape to like go into the full-blown, more spiritual, more vibrational, energetic aspects of self, that's going to take us further than doing all these things to try to just like make the reality of life better in any area. And that's whatever you really just identify in terms of like your personal value system. So, you know, it's a clearing. We're shedding an old identity rooted in a perspective, a point of view of reality. And there's really no preparation for that, because we've wired our ego and our systems around that point of view of how we see things. And if we're too busy staying in the program, and we're not giving ourselves time to take a step back and contemplate and meditate and be spiritual, we won't see it. We won't actually see the program that we're playing out. We're too much in the mind instead of being the observer of the mind and our patterns. And so it's actually the activities that feel spiritual, that rises to this higher perspective of witnessing ourselves is better. And so to use kind of like a really spiritual / plant medicine terminology, it's a time of integration. It's a time of integration. It's a time of character development. It's a slow moving energy, and it's not really like a fast, like whatever thing that it is that we're hoping to like have happen sooner than later. Being okay with that maybe not happening like as quickly as we want, because that Venus, it's going to sextile to that Mercury that's going to retrograde in Leo right as it retrogrades. A sextile happens, so it's kind of like pulling back the red carpet, and it could feel like some delays in the communication, money, project situations that we go for, but really it's not so much about that it's not going to work. It's more just like oh, by the way, like you need to approach it now in this way, and like look at it in this way, look at it in this light, because it's going to be more sustainable to like adjust the vibe, adjust the way of like looking at it, than trying to, well, let me just keep doing it the same way. It would be like, it's like gambling. It's like, well, I won on red, so I'm just going to keep betting on red. And it's like, well, maybe go try something different, try a different table, try like maybe leave the casino altogether and try something different. It's not about the monetary like gains, like winning of things, as much it is, are we feeling the joy, or are we creating? That Sun square Chiron, so that Sun before it leaves Cancer, that's going to square over that Chiron in Aries. It's always an ouch moment, the Chiron square, so the Sun, but it is a reminder, and we've been getting this transit since 2019, but it's a reminder, like, don't repress the wounded memories that might be coming up, the stuff in the private life, and it could be even revolve around family, but definitely it's an emotional component around the past. Not repressing it, especially if it feels like the shame that the deformity of Chiron can bring out with our identity, and a part of us that doesn't feel like our full selves and hasn't been for years, and tries to, it's like, just let it surface, like let it come up. It'll transform you, it'll transform the individuals, us, all of us, like that's like willing to be okay that there is a deep, sensitive, emotional component that can be really healing. And honestly, a lot of it can actually be kind of this like more mother nurturing element to it, and Jupiter can expand that, where we can actually have some of that deep motherly empathy, compassion for, there's a part of us that just doesn't have it all figured out, have it all together, that is a part of the mapping of the collective, and even in our own soul tribes, that we all have a role to play, but that role is like changing. It's not going to remain exactly the same, and so it could feel like a game of musical chairs, maybe even in community, but it's like, it's just the energy that's like starting to move like with that. I would say that this is a big reminder too, with that Sun that's going to come into Leo this week, at the end of this week, in sextile to Uranus, and is actually activating Uranus, because this is the first time the Sun is making any sort of major aspect to Uranus since it came into Gemini. So it can activate that passion, that excitement, but it does deal with people, a passion for connection. This could bring up passion for the whole tech communication side of the evolution of things, but it's the important part that reminds us, like, we got to speak our hearts in order to find where we really belong, and that could, create like sparks in a good way, for finding more aligned connections, like in that way, or even if it's just for a moment, just an expression that feels more unique and vibrant to people, that actually allows them to connect with our energy in that way. And we never really know exactly what that's going to result in. There's a random nature to that, but that can be exciting in a just way that we can just deeply appreciate. So, I think this is a week of like shaking things up. And what's really odd is that it's mostly on the mental levels of things. It's just and it can feel like another week of, we've been seeing some of this like already, like the uncertainty of things, or the unpredictability, or the we're not Kansas anymore, like the outlook side of it. But but it's more like there's many opportunities, there's many shifts available in perspective, that we can actually like go into these spaces and find the exit in our mind, find the exit out of our own mental programming of our own systems that like hold us back, and those systems can be, you know, very unique, but like there is something in this astrology that is saying like, hey, like you don't need to plan demolition charges and create drama and like make it hard or difficult in order to integrate a change in perspective and awareness and follow the breadcrumbs, follow the intuition, like make those changes. And so big fat reminder that it's like it's become so beautiful just like saying yes to the universe and doing it and making those changes that we're guided to do. You know, it's not about just like taking note of it and being like, yeah, I'll do that later, because then it might be too late. Like the frequency and the vibe of the divine timing's already shifted. And then it's like trying to get out a Rubik's Cube and trying to like remap and realign everything. And so we have to just like trust. We have to trust and have faith that when we're being shown something, that like that's the thing to do. Because without it, it creates fear, uncertainty, and that's where we want to go backwards, and we want to kind of just like find this safety net there is no safety net. In the old reality, it's like the safety net of the sun in Cancer, especially with Jupiter there, is more of this like your safety is your vision. Your safety is like the new vision that's starting to form that can feel a little bit like more basic, but it's like the humble beginnings of the vision that's going to move into a direction that's actually not feeling like left behind, like getting phased out, like being like the old version of self or the old way of following the same routine in reality, and that like getting left behind. And it's weird. It's really kind of a challenging horoscope to give, because, you know, 98-99% of people, they may not be able to like make that leap. And so, but the good news is that most people are seeing the writing on the wall, and like there's something that's being asked to change. It's just kind of like the uncertainty of like, well, how do I get there? It's like, how do I get to that ledge? How do I get to that hidden space that feels like a bonus to life, like it's an extracurricular, but it's actually on the main path. Like it's actually important to do, like being undertooled, like underprepared for moving forward, like not accessing and utilizing that information that can feel very spiritual in nature. And so it's like, you know, and remember there's help, because this astrology can bring up just only having the horizontal plane of things to figure out of life, right? The horizontal is in like all the physical stuff and the things in the environment that we perceive with our eyes, and the people that we see, and the bank account that we see, and this project that we see. But remembering like the vertical access of the spiritual connection and connect with all the spirit guides, because it can be a little bit frustrating, like for the ego, that this is not a well-oiled machine astrology that we're in, that it's constantly having to turn to the mentorship of spirit in a deep, emotional, heartfelt, compassionate way that's got to work on like not getting like frustrated or afraid, and kind of go, okay, hey, now this thing's not working, and just like really surrendering into that. And the crazy thing is that won't even really come from the mind. It comes from more of like a soothing place, like more of a relaxed state of being. And so we kind of have to like really be okay with like do whatever it is. It's like meditative for you, of like your restoration, contemplation thing, to get your clarity and your vision going and your higher perspective, and then go, okay, whatever I got from that, especially the stuff that's clear, tangible actions, things that can be done, like go do those things, because the stress, the fear mounts when we don't implement those things. And so it's like, it's the skip step where it's like, if we don't do that, we wind back up in the old pattern going, what the fuck's going on? I'm confused. And it's like, there's something that got missed, right? Yes, Neptune is notorious for the fog and the confusion, and it's on Saturn, and it's in Aries, and that North Node's there. And so we're kind of like, wait, what, like, is it new? Is it old? Like, should we be taking action? Like, and trying to survive, or should we be more spiritual, or both? Like, what is it? And it's like, what is the part that reveals itself for just a moment in the fog, and then it's like taking that and going, okay, gotcha, I see that, and making that adjustment. And that's where that like faith comes in. It's like very blind in that way. Saturn, it's just like, it's like, I got nothing. I gave you the homework. Like, Saturn's like, I need a break. Like, this was a lot to take on. It's like, sure, I'll come into Aries once every 30 years, and to help reinitiate like a new reality. But like with Neptune here, it's like, I gotta like help you shoulder this weight of an old reality ending and try to initiate a new spiritual reality in a world that's mostly been disconnected from its spiritual side and been plugged into that South Node fucking Mars Virgo piece. And even just, you can just even relate it back to the transits of 2020 with Saturn Pluto that met in Capricorn, and even just the limitations of the Christmas star, Jupiter Saturn that met at the end of 2021, at the beginning of Aquarius. But that was in the one of the most limiting positions of Aquarius, where it's like still having to lift the red tape of things. And so there's still these cycles of challenges in reality that just don't seem to really like go away or fade. And so part of the new normal that we're transitioning through these next 2 years and getting to that new normal in 2027, and it kind of starts to iron out things and the wrinkles through 2027 to 2030, we can find some more chill vibes. It's like, it's the acceptance of the new normal of like, what's been done has been done. The universe has spoken, and we're responding as we are as humans and as groups of people, and we just got to keep going. But the keep going part, it's this deeply spiritual evolution of how do we connect better to our soul so that we can connect better to others. That's where, if you ever feel like any part of life's feeling like at the bottom of the barrel, it's like the climb back up is that. It's being a higher, better version of self that accepts that there are challenges that can feel very like survival based, but also that connection piece. And like North Node in Pisces, South Node Mars and Virgo too reminds us like it can look really glamorous, and beautiful and inspirational and spiritual and stuff people put out on social media or just all these spaces, but is it actually factual? And so it's a hard thing, because it's like we can't criticize that South Node Mars and Virgo. I mean, you can, like, but we don't have enough energy to give that many fucks about it, of that criticism, or even criticizing ourselves. And so it's being okay with the compassionate piece of it, and then kind of going, well, why is this triggering? What in my ego am I reacting like towards this? And so it's probably pointing to some energy attention shift that we need to go towards to move our energy like in that better, more positive direction. And again, I cannot stress this enough, and I'll wrap up with this, but it's like the way to really blend the energy of continuing to progress forward and feel into things and not feel stressed the fuck out is leading our energy from the solar plexus. And I almost need to like give a workshop on that. I almost need people in the room to like teach them what that feels like. But it's like, it's a strong, personal, empowering nature, like in that solar plexus, gut, stomach area, where Mars South Node is in Virgo, and Virgo rules the stomach. And so it is like this, just, remembering to breathe, remembering to be somatically present in our body. Like our aura is really getting broadcast from our solar plexus. So if we're not connecting there, we're feeling weak, and we're in the mind, our mind a lot of times is just responding to the destructive, chaotic energy in our auric field, and we don't know any better. We're accidentally letting like negative frequencies in, and then that causes the frustration and the looping thoughts and the stress and all this stuff. And so it's like coming back into the solar plexus and paying attention to where the aura is. Is it going to be perfect, and is it going to feel like the high vibe, love and light, rainbow shit? No, definitely not. But at least it gives us a sense of presence and connecting and rooting into like the understanding that like, okay, like this is all moving us towards something. I don't know what, but it's not the point. But sometimes just a reminder too, like, hey, remember, like the old normal wasn't great anyway. Like you could say that collectively, you could say it on more of a community-based front, because it's, very Uranus and Gemini. You could see it in your own life, like that Saturn on Neptune's reminding us, like it's not even letting us like get away with this like thing of like, oh, you could just go in this direction into the nostalgia of the past and like it was better then. It's like we know better. And so getting out of the stuckness of this a lot of times, like especially because the best part of the astrology is the Jupiter in Cancer, where it loves to be. It's exalted there, and that's one of the planets we can rely on. It's the home sign of the moon, so it's paying attention. Where's the moon going? I think a good study project for everyone would be just freaking Google it. Where is the moon today in Western astrology? And just seeing where that's at and starting to like map that out each day, and then see it from month to month and start to track the emotional patterns of like, well, when it's in this sign, this is what my journal notes said of how I like feel this way. And just a very practical aspect to like the moon's dependable orientation, because it's like if we're going through so much unpredictable change here on planet Earth and society and ourselves in general, it's seeing that we can use that benefic positive energy of Jupiter while it spends this year that it is in Cancer to our benefit by tracking the moon, tracking the emotions, and that lunar energy, that unconscious energy, a lot of that is the fabric of our emotional body that helps make up our aura and works with the mind. And so, like we can do this. Like we can't get through this, and we can have conversations and talk and figure things out together, but we need to be having like bigger, smarter conversations, right? This has got to be, everyone knows like the joke about talk about the weather. We got to talk more about than the weather. We got to, this might sound crazy, but it's not even a political thing. It's like, yeah, talk about the Epstein files, but also talk about more than the Epstein files. Like talk about like, what are we doing as people that can wear our own cape and work together and figure shit out? Because the whole Epstein thing is like still us fucking waiting on big brother government to do shit for us and to fix shit and blah, blah. And it's like, that's the issue, right? Like the issue is that we can't wait for that. We have to be better. We have to be better in our demeanor. We have to be better about how we react, and we gotta stay focused and stay on top of things and go, okay, like I gotta keep driving in the direction that feels aligned for my soul, and whatever changes I gotta make and things I gotta do, embrace it, because it's change written all over the astrology. It's mutable energies, which is change, right? North node in Pisces, so mutable water. South node in Virgo, mutable earth. And then it's Uranus in Gemini, mutable air. And so there's nothing in the fire sign that's mutable, change, and Sag, but Jupiter that rules it is in Cancer. So it's like the change is in the initiation of things that actually feel more comfortable. Like we don't need to be fucking fighting during these times. Like it's such a waste. Like it's the biggest waste of energy right now to be in conflict with others, to be in criticisms and, you know, going back and forth. And we'll see it by the time this Mercury retrograde finishes. That's going to be going on for, you know, 3 weeks. It starts this week, where it's like, gosh, we just don't really need to do that. We could create so much better by staying focused on things that have spiritual substance to it, that bring people together, that solve issues. And it's all in the essence of, how do we come together and role model a better spiritual way of living, to give an example that we're all creating together in our own communities, and serve that as an example, put that shit on social media, put the real stuff out there that's very humble and full of candor and vulnerability, to go like, this is the thing. This is the thing that we're doing, and this is like what you can do too if you want to. So if anyone wants to get a personal astrology reading, just message me or drop a comment, an emoji if you're on YouTube. Of course, it'll be down below. And if you want to be a part of that Uranus special, where I cover what is really going on with Uranus coming into Gemini, and how these outer planets are now, at least for now, in their new signs. And so it's a big, important component of that. So appreciate you all. Remember, still try to have fun. It is the sun coming into Leo. It's Mercury retrograde in Leo. And so the weirdest part about it is that Pluto up in Aquarius could be like, no, like we gotta like be like a dog with a bone, you know, with the problems. And it's like, sometimes like it's the joy meter that needs to go up, that recharges our passion and finding our creativity to inspire others on balancing that shit out. Because when we come back next week, it is going to be Sun and Leo oppose Pluto and Aquarius. And so it's that access point of going, okay, let's find the balance and the tension and find the joy, and just not get swallowed up on all these crazy complex issues and things that we get obsessed with in the world and people, and like find a way to be the inspiration. Appreciate y'all. See you.